Alright, hello everyone and welcome back to Kottabos Space Program, where today we are having a look at the Omicron mod, which is being made by forum user ClimberFX. And what this glorious little piece of work looks to add into the game is all the parts necessary to build your own sci-fi futuristic flying space car. And it is pretty amazing, and I'm actually a little bit surprised at how much I like this, because, well, if you've watched me for a while, you know one of my favorite things is I love stock-alike parts, and this Omicron mod is anything but stock-alike. It has a very futuristic sci-fi aesthetic to it, which is quite cool. I do find myself enjoying the look of these parts, and it can make some pretty amazing spacecraft with it, and so yeah, even without being stock-alike, I still really do like these things. So let's jump right on into the spaceplane hangar and have a look at the whole heck of a lot of parts that we have to go through today. So let's go and type into the search bar ClimberFX, which will grab all of the Omicron parts, but also grab a couple of the ladders, or mobility enhancers, as well for some reason. I don't know why, but they are there. And let's start by looking at the Omicron Cockpit, which we have a lot of parts to go through, so I'm going to try and go through things as quick as possible, but we're probably going to spend the most time of any part looking at this, because there are a lot of different concepts with the Omicron space car that we can talk about from this. Now, first and foremost, for the cockpit is something that's very odd about it. As you can see, it can be a command pod with a minimum of 1 crew to operate, but here's the problem. As you can see over on this tab here, there's no crew. You cannot put a crewman into this thing. And if I just go to the crew tab there, yeah, can't put a crewman inside of this, which is kind of an oddity for a command pod to have a command minimum of 1 crew, but no way to put a crewman in here. How this thing works is via the command seats, just like a small rover would, which we'll grab the seat here in a little bit. And so it's just kind of odd. This is going to be one of those type of aircraft that you're going to want to have a truck full of crew members on the side of the runway waiting to get into this thing before you can actually take off. And I just find it strange that this command pod thinks it's a command pod, even though there are literally no Kerbals you can put in here without a command seat. But besides that, it has the pretty typical stuff: data transmitter, Kerbnet access. It is a lifting surface, and that's the last time, hopefully, I'll mention it, because it is a flying space car that we're trying to make here, basically every part, as you can see, has a lifting surface to it. So I'm just not going to mention that anymore. If it's a part, assume it has a lifting surface. After that, we have the crew report, which is, I would assume, unusable without any crew actually being in it. Electrical charge of 100, liquid fuel of a max of 197, but it's at 0 by default, monopropellant of 25, and oxidizer of 240.8, but again at 0 by default. So if you want to put fuel into this thing, you're going to have to do it manually yourself. Now, as for how you do control your ship, you're gonna have to get crew into one of these Omicron seats, which we'll pop into here. There we go. We have 2 lovely attachment points for them right there in the cockpit, and these seats will give them a radiator plus an extra data transmitter, which is always good to have. And of course, it's a great place for your Kerbal to sit as they fly and hopefully not fly out of the ship. That'd be generally a good thing. Now, another thing I'm going to talk about here is because of the seats and the fact that the cockpit doesn't take any crew, neither does any other part that you would typically associate with crew. For instance, I'm just going to grab one of these real quick. We'll talk more about it here in a little bit, but this is one of the crew modules for this, which typically you'd associate with being able to fill with crew. If we go to the crew tab again, yeah, you can't, but what it does have is slots inside, or attachment points rather, as you can see, to put more chairs. So anything that has anything to do with crew in the Omicron flight system, you're gonna need chairs for it. And what's really fun about that is, you may have noticed by now, we got this cool little door back here, and oh, look at that, there's another one over here. We can actually open these. That one would be the back hatch door. There we go. We can open it and see those slots on the ground. that's a ladder. You can tell your Kerbal to grab onto it, and they will crawl on their belly through these hatches on the ship to get from one section to another. So if we open up this hatch from the cockpit, as well as the front hatch of the crew module, there we go. There's a hole now for your crew to get from one section of the ship to the next. And I really like that idea because typically when we build ships in this game, you just kind of imagine that they're connected to one another, but they're really just welded together and then you right-click to transfer crew around. This, you physically have to have your Kerbal crawl from one section to another. And I really like that. It's even the same thing if you dock two of these together. There's even a hatch, oh god, there it is, for there as well. So you'll have to get your Kerbal through that hole into the other Omicron ship. And I really, really like that idea. I think that's one of the most interesting parts about this, and probably, frankly, why I do love this Omicron mod so much. But let's get rid of this thing. We'll talk more about it momentarily, and talk a little bit more about, well, the cockpit. Now, we've basically gone through all the cockpit bits, but I do briefly want to mention just the texturing and modeling, because I didn't really get around to it before. Very beautiful texturing on this, very beautiful modeling. My only sort of minor complaint is the black on the bottom. It's the same thing for all parts. No matter what we have that black, and it is just a solid black. There's no I mean, there is some minor slight texturing to it, but it just feels a bit too contrasting, because we also have things like black air brakes and black engines that when you put them on this surface, they're hard as hell to actually see because it's black on black. So I'd like to see maybe some more contrast here. I don't know, maybe some more texturing to make it look, I don't even know what I would like from it, but just something other than this pitch black that we have now, just to make it a bit easier to see some of the other parts that we'll get to. Now, besides that, you do have a few other attachment points on this cockpit. Of course, the rear one for attaching things back there. We have this front attachment point for specifically attaching a number of different intakes that we have here, which we'll get to momentarily. And then we also have a attachment point right there at the top for your windshields, so you can keep all your Kerbals safe. And as for the windshields, we have three different ones here. So we have this main sort of large clear one. We have sort of the convertible bit, I guess you could call it there. Probably not the best for space, but you know, good for cruising around town. And then finally the Omicron cockpit window C, which I think may be my favorite just because it feels a bit more like a shuttle rather than a car. But there we go, that is the bits. Well, I guess we'll do the intakes while we're here, because it's all centered around the cockpit. And we have, again, three different kinds of front intakes. We have the intake A, which is just a very, very solid bit there, with a little emblem on the front, and it is a lifting surface, whereas the other two also have air intakes for your jet engines, perhaps. So this one here, the B, you can see is also an active radiator, as well as an air intake, which is quite fun, and is just a big open mouth thing right there. Very cool. And then the C is an active radiator and resource intake again, and it just has basically two resource intakes, which is why it's showing up twice here, because it's one on each side, I guess is what it's considering it as. But yes, again, a very, very cool part. We'll just leave that one on there, because I think that one's my favorite. Just got a cool look to it. And what the heck, we're going to put one of these on there too. Bam. Alright, now from here on, we're going to start at the top and work our way down from all these other parts. Now, the next thing we have is two different air brakes. We have a white air brake and an black air brake, so again, just whichever color you prefer, you can pop that on there and deploy these for your air braking needs. And yeah, that's basically what it is, an air brake, very useful for slowing yourself down. We also do have a standard Omicron antenna here, which serves as a data transmitter, very nicely fitting in with the sort of futuristic design, being a swept back antenna, also with the design of it being a space car, quote unquote. Yeah, it's, you know, like the aerial on your normal car at home. We then also have a Omicron back, which if we do, well, actually on this piece it works. You can see we just have sort of like all the, I guess, bits and bobs of the interior of the ship, but if we want to close that up, we have the Omicron back closed. Now I'm actually going to skip ahead to some other parts because we have a couple other closed backs. Where are they? There they are down at the bottom. And we then have this one, which rather than being a black and white, is just a bit more textured around the edges and the solid white there. And then the final one actually has a hatch in the center, which of course, like with any other hatch, can be opened up to let your Kerbal out into the world. And that is wonderful. Now if we head back up to the top, oh boy, back and forth here, we then have a lovely engine shroud. Now this is quite interesting because engines in this are, awkward. You actually need one of these things, an Omicron engine adapter, to actually fit on any of these sort of stock engines in the game, which as you can see, is kind of fidgety to work around with. So you'll have to, maybe use the rotate tools, etc. to get it where you need, and then basically you fit the engine of your desire from your engine category onto the correct circle. It's a little bit interesting to work with, but once you have your engine of choice onto whichever one of these circles it fits, it should then fit through one of these holes on one of these varieties of engine backs. So on this one, it's made for a long, large engine here, good for the nuclear engines. We then have a medium engine here, so just a not quite as long and in-depth one. We then, of course, have a short-backed one, great for the ion drives, very, very cool. And then a just back strut here, which, is good for hiding that engine adapter. You can hide it inside of here, again, just once you finically get it into place. And then we have the twin engine back, which again is good for, if you got like 2 jet engines or so, very fun on that. So just a good place to hide the body of the engine, so all you really have is the main sort of nozzle of the engine coming out the rear end here. Very fun. We then have a number of fuel tanks, and these are the cargo bays first, never mind. So we have it in 3 sizes, a large, a medium, and a small cargo area, all of which do have a lovely fun door to them. And if we do take this off, you can see you have a lot of attachment points on the interior for hooking in whatever it is you need to hook in. And again, probably a good place to hide one of your engine adapters here by placing it in, getting it into place, and then popping the engine on. I'll show you one of them in place here in a moment with an actual finished ship. The next is a cargo shell. Now we have the cargo large with fuel. I forgot to mention that. I apologize. You can add fuel onto these things if you so desire, liquid fuel and oxidizer. The next part are just pure shells for these that can open up the cargo bay doors. So effectively you have just plain old cargo bays or cargo bays with fuel. And actually, I kind of like these ones a bit more because, as you can see, it does have the slats that the Kerbals can hold onto and climb along. Though the other one will, of course, give you a bit more storage room since it doesn't have the flat bottom surface there. So just whichever cargo bay fits your needs. Now we're back to the crew modules, and we have a number of them. We have, that's the crew module 1, the crew module 2, and then the crew module 3. Each of them has 4 attachment points on the inside to fit chairs. This one, of course, has the number 2, has a docking port fitted on the top, and the number 3 is, well, an open top design for your, cruising conveniences. Now, all of them do also have liquid fuel and oxidizer that you can add in, so a lot of good places for fuel. And you'll notice on the 1 and the 2, besides the hatches we can open up, we can also open up the windows, if you so desire. That is a thing that you can do. And yeah, it's fun if you want a little bit of air, I guess, for your Kerbals. There we go. Now the next part we have is just an extra docking port. If, say you just want a docking node on some part of the ship, you have that available to you. It does have a hatch to open up. It does extend the docking port, which I forgot to show on this piece here. We can do the same by extending that docking port so it gets a little bit more room to make it a bit safer to dock with another ship. Very nice indeed. And then the next is the engine adapter. We already went over that. Then we have a series of lights. We have a large front light and a small front light. And yeah, these are just supposed to fit to the contourings of your vessel and will, you know, produce light and shine it forward. Great little things, very cool little features. I believe we have a couple more down towards the bottom. The next pieces we have are fuel tanks. Now we have a large fuel tank which is in the F class, and then a large tank which is in the H class. Now here's the thing, the H class has a hole for your Kerbals to go through. The F class does not. It is a solid thing, so your crew cannot climb through this bit. So if you do have like a crew module, you do not want to put it on the other side of one of the F-rated tanks because they won't be able to climb through it. It will hold more fuel than an H-rated tank, but yeah, you can't get your Kerbals through the hole in the center of the ship. Now again, all of these, whether it's the F class or H class, come in 3 varieties, so we have a large, a medium, and then finally a small tank right there. And yeah, it's quite nice having that lovely tube going all the way through. Again, on the H model. The F, it will be solid, but will give you more fuel. We've already gone over the intake, so we have landing gear for the Omicron, which is quite nice. As you can see, it's meant to sort of fit on the side of the thing. Oh, I've borked it. Yeah, that was bound to happen with me. Yeah, it's made to fit on the curve. There we go. Imagine that it fits. Yeah, that's me trying to attach things in a hurry. But yes, it does fit the contours of the ship quite nicely, so it can be hidden very easily. We then have a Mark II adapter if you do want to make this thing go from the Omicron design into the Mark II fuselage, so you could say have this as your main cockpit, and then the Mark II fuselage for the rest of the ship if you so desire, which is kind of a cool thing. And along those lines, I'm actually going to skip ahead a little bit to this one, which changes us to the size 2 adapter, which is for the 2.5 meter things, so if you did want to launch this from a rocket, you could go and do so. There we are. We then have, going back up here, a Mr. Cooler, which is just a nice active radiator that you can turn on to keep things cool. We then also have a Mr. Fusion, which I'm assuming will become a reactor one day. For now, it does nothing. I'm assuming, though, it will become some form of reactor in the future. The next we have is another light, a Omni light, which is nice. They go right on the top there, as you can see, and provide just a nice little glow for your ship. Very, very good. Nice for lights to guide in docking, etc. We then have a small Omicron RCS tank, great for going on any of the interior sections of the ships, like cargo bays, etc. We then have a number of different thrusters. The RCS Thruster A, which is in white. The A, which also has a black version here, as you can see. If I can pop it apparently right onto the same thing. There we go. There's the black version. And then we have the same with the B, a white version and a black version. And then finally the Thruster C with a white version and a black version. So just whichever one you're wanting to go with. They all have the same amount of thrust power, so really it's just whichever one you're going for styling. We then also have a reaction wheel, again good for going inside to one of the cargo bays because it kind of looks a bit awkward, honestly, in my opinion. But you know, it works. This is actually a really cool part. It is meant to go, if I actually, oh boy, take some of these things off here. Oh, there we are, and put a fuel tank on here. Yes, that should work. And say you put this on the side of your vessel. But you know what, it fits nicely into the side of the vessel if I had time to rotate. But we're already running pretty late here. And you can extend this, and it is actually a docking port. So if you have 2 of these on 2 different ships, you can dock to each other from this thing. And it's meant for, you know, having cross feed for fuel. So it's quite an interesting little docking port designed specifically for transferring resources. And it's a very cool part. I quite like it. We then have the Omicron staircase, which goes up here on the top, and we can extend that ladder so it fits the contours. very nicely. We then have the Omicron VTOL engine here, which is a Saber engine, so it can switch between liquid fuel and oxidizer and liquid fuel and air intake, has gimbling range, a pretty good max thrust of 95 kilonewtons in vacuum, and is quite fun. Oh boy, and that is actually all the parts. So now I can talk about a little bit more of complicated issues. If we click on this, you have automatic switching, so it knows how to switch between the two different versions, just like with the, I forget the name of the engine now, but the one jet engine that does the same thing, so it can switch automatically between air breathing and oxidizer, or we can manually toggle the mode. And the next thing is control setup. Now this is for the VTOL. This engine can turn itself to face all the way down at the ground, so it can turn 90 degrees. And if we click this, we get this VTOL presets here, where we can select what the different steps are for the preset. Now, again, it'll go from this position down to -90 degrees, and the step size it'll take is by 15 degrees. Now, we can change that to whatever else we want. We can also go to automatic presets, which we'll talk about more when we go out into the world. And then with the steering, we can choose to have use roll steering on, yaw steering on or off, and pitch steering on or off, basically to limit ourselves to certain criteria or certain angles, pitch, yaw, or roll, etc., that we can or cannot control to hopefully stabilize you. But in my experience, I just die anyways. I'm horrible at flying with this thing. But yes, it's a little bit too much to go through, I think, in this episode today, because we're already running pretty late with all the parts we have. But the main thing you're going to want to know here is this step size by 15 degrees. That is a very, very important thing. And we'll talk more about that if we go outside. But first, let's actually look at the craft we're going to grab, which is the Omicron Trip. Actually, let's grab this one first, and then we'll grab the Trip, which is what we're actually going to take outside. Now, remember the engine adapter here. This is what it looks like when you actually have it set up properly. We have the engine adapter actually set up with taking a little bit of time and care to be put into the cargo bay quite nicely, and then the nuclear engine attached to it, where it then is protected by the engine long back here. So you just have the nozzle coming out the back. It may have been a bit awkward to try and show that off there earlier with kind of a quick explanation, but here visually, hopefully you get a better idea for it. So you have the adapter, then attach the engine, and then the engine back to sort of cover it all up and hide it from view and make it fit with the overall aesthetic. Now we're actually going to grab the Trip one here because it's, oh boy, the easiest one for me to fly, but frankly, it's still probably going to crash and launch anyways with no control. And I have a truck near the runway full of Kerbals, so we should be good. Now, as you can see here, we've had a UI pop up with our hotkeys. Basically, this ship and this mod automatically sets up the different hotkeys. So your usual 1 through 0 keys that you use, you don't need to worry about setting it up. And oh god, I forgot it disappears after a certain amount of time. If you hit O though, right there, it comes back. So basically it has preset all of our action groups. So you don't have to worry about controlling all these individual things yourself and setting them up, which is quite nice that it takes care of that for you. Now let's actually get over to my truck here. Let's unpark that thing and bring it up here so we can get some Kerbals inside and have them explore their lovely new ship. There we go. Alright, let's get out Valentina first, and she's going to pilot this thing. Alright, let's just get her into a pilot seat, and plus then we can actually brake this thing, because I think it may be slightly moving forward. Okay, open cockpit window. Forgot to show that off to you guys in the spaceplane hangar, that you can open those. And let us board. There we are. We'll turn on our brakes so we can't move anywhere. Perfect. Perfect. And then go and grab our other Kerbal. We'll grab Bob here, and we'll get him inside as well. But, of course, we could actually get him in through this way. If I extend the ladder... Now, here's the thing, though. The ladder is actually a little bit finicky, and it is something I do want to show off to you. If we climb up on the ladder, Oh, come on. There we go. Climb, climb, climb. There we are. It's a little bit finicky getting on and off the ladder. You sometimes have to hit F once or twice, and then you'll notice he tends to get stuck. It's something about the angle of this thing that it tends to get stuck on occasion. Just keep hitting W, and yeah, about here is when the ladder does roughly stop. There we go. We are on the top. Perfect. And if we say want to get into here, all we need to do is open up the docking port hatch and drop Bob right in. There we go. Perfect. And we'll just close this now. And now we have him inside of the crew compartment. Say hello to Bob, everyone. He is indoors, and that is wonderful. And if we wanted to, is this a crew compartment in the back? It is a cargo bay. Lovely. We could say open up the hatch wall there. Open up the back hatch. What he's going to have to do is watch when I hit F to grab. He's going to lie down, grab onto those slats, and bam, there we go. He's gone out into the cargo section now. Or if we want, we can open up the front hatch, then open that hatch. Oh, nope, that's the... Oh, I also forgot to show off that. The fuel tanks have a little notch for you to open up the fuel tank. So you're good. You can refuel there. There we go. Another little minor thing. Open up that hatch is what I meant to do, and there we go. He's now in the cockpit. Let's actually retract this ladder here. But yes, that was something I forgot to show you on the fuel tanks. They do have a small hatch. It does nothing. It serves zero purpose but being awesome. So you have a little fuel hatch there you can open and close. But let's actually get him into the back, and we'll open up the right window so I can actually right-click on one of these chairs correctly. And there we go. He's now boarded onto the ship. Perfect. And I love that. I love that you can do all these things. Open and close these different hatches. Move your crew around however you so desire. And then, be on your way. It's very, very cool. Now let's actually bring back up the O hotkey to show all the different action groups. Again, just to reiterate, this mod will automatically set up your action groups for you if you're using the Omicron Cockpit. And so the first one will be cockpit window, automatically set to 1. 2 is the cockpit hatch, as you can see here. 3 will be the crew front hatch door. 4 will be the back hatch door. 5 will be the wall hatch door / cargo bay. 6, the ladder for opening and closing. 7 is to turn the VTOL engines on or off. 8 to switch between air or rocket mode, so either air intake or oxidizer. 9 is to set the VTOLs down, and 0 is up. And that is very, very important because remember those increments that we talked about earlier? That is the increments going up or down. 9 will set it down by 15 degrees, 0 will set it up by 15 degrees. As you can see here, I'm moving it up by 15 degrees at a time, and now with 9, I'm moving it down 15 degrees at a time. And so that is how those VTOLs do work. And that's quite fun. Let's actually turn them on though. Bam, with 7. Oh god, throttle down, throttle down! Okay, there we go. Let's actually, we're gonna take this thing off like a plane rather than VTOLing it because I'm not good at VTOL. I keep crashing with VTOL, guys. So let's turn off the brakes, which of course also closes our air brake back there. And we'll activate our now not quite VTOL engines to take off normally. But remember, all the different body parts are lift surfaces, so hopefully we'll take off before we crash into that tank. Nope, we died. Ooh, boy, look at that spin. Oh, I thought we crashed there for a moment, but no, it's just getting ripped apart by physics. Okay, let's revert flight to launch there. Oh, I love it. That's my piloting, folks. Yeah, I was hoping we could take off before the end of the runway, but no. No, physics did not agree with that. But yeah, that is the Omicron. There are, included with the mod, a number of different ships available for you to play with. If we actually do go back to the Space Center real quick. So a lot of different versions for you to mess around with and get ideas for what kind of ship you might want to create. We've got the atomic one here, which has the nuclear engine, the ion one with the ion engines, this one with the LVT-45, this one with a jet engine, this one which just uses the VTOLs in a micro sort of small design, and then the trip one, which I apparently saved twice somehow, which was the one we were just playing with. And you got a lot of fun options with these, a load of different parts, and more to come in the future. So definitely, if you'd like to check this out, take a look at the link in the description as always, and definitely go have fun with it. It is a very cool mod with some great parts, and as we did see, it did have adapters for, you know, standard rockets in the Mark II fuselage, so you can mess around with adding these to other types of designs here and there. But yeah, that's gonna be it for this extraordinarily long episode, and we exploded on the runway somehow just then. Interesting. Yeah, I think that means it's time to end the episode, guys. So I hope you have enjoyed, and that you do come back for the next, when hopefully physics will be fixed. But until that time, thank you for watching, and as always, have a good one. Oh god, I was gonna switch to the truck so we could drive away and hide somewhere, but all the parts, they're all counting as debris. Oh boy, later folks.